The sun had barely risen over downtown Los Angeles when 85-year-old Martha Jenkins stirred from her uneasy sleep on the cold pavement. The chill of the morning crept into her frail bones, and she pulled her old knitted shawl tighter around her shoulders. Once upon a time, this city had been her home. She'd taught at a local elementary school for 30 years. But now, the same streets she had walked to work on were her shelter. Her eyes were weary, her spirit dimmed, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. 3 months earlier, her nightmare began. Martha had gone to visit her sister in San Diego for a week. When she returned, she found strangers living in her house, a group of squatters who had broken in, changed the locks, and claimed the property as theirs. When she called the police, they said it was a civil matter. Too poor to afford a lawyer, Martha was left helpless, watching from the sidewalk as people sat in her living room, eating her food and wearing her late husband's robe. Now she spent her days sitting near an alley beside a biker clubhouse. The noise of roaring engines and laughter made her flinch at first, but she found some comfort in the fact that she wasn't completely alone. Every evening, she watched the same group of bikers leave together, big men in leather jackets, their bikes gleaming under the city lights. They looked intimidating, but there was something strangely honorable about the way they treated one another, always helping, always protecting. One Friday evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the city in orange and gold, Martha struggled to lift a small cardboard box containing her only possessions, a faded photo album, a Bible, and an old music box. The effort made her dizzy, and she nearly collapsed. Just then, the deep rumble of motorcycles filled the air. The Iron Saints were returning from a charity ride. Their leader, Jake Bear Lawson, noticed the frail woman by the curb. Something in her trembling hands and lost expression made him slow down. He parked his bike, took off his helmet, and approached her quietly. "Ma'am, you okay?" he asked, his rough voice surprisingly gentle. Martha looked up, startled. His arms were covered in tattoos, his beard thick and rugged, but his eyes were kind. I lost my home," she whispered. "They took it from me. I don't know what to do." Bear crouched beside her, glancing at her torn shoes and the bruises on her knees. "Who took your home?" he asked, his tone darkening. "People," she said, tears brimming. "They won't leave." The other bikers gathered around, their loud chatter fading into silence. One of them, a burly man named Tex, muttered, "That's messed up." Bear looked at Martha for a long moment, then nodded firmly. "You're not alone anymore, ma'am," he said. "We're gonna make this right." That night, the Iron Saints made a silent promise: no one would leave Martha Jenkins on the street again. The streets of downtown Los Angeles buzzed with restless energy, but for Martha Jenkins, the noise had become a cruel reminder of how far she had fallen. At 85, she had once been the heart of her neighborhood, a retired schoolteacher who baked pies for the kids next door and fed stray cats in her garden. But now, that same garden was overrun by squatters, and the home she'd spent 50 years in was no longer hers. She sat on a sidewalk near a graffiti-covered wall, clutching a tattered purse, her world reduced to a few belongings and a lifetime of memories. 3 months earlier, Martha had been forced out of her home. She had gone to visit her late husband's grave one afternoon and returned to find the locks changed. A group of squatters, 4 young men and 2 women, had moved in. They laughed when she demanded they leave. The police came but said it was a civil issue and couldn't do much. Martha had tried everything, calling city offices, pleading with neighbors, but nobody would help. So she ended up sleeping on the streets, surviving on church soup and the kindness of strangers. One evening, as the sun began to set, Martha sat on the curb outside an old biker clubhouse. The roaring of motorcycles echoed like thunder as a group of bikers, the Iron Saints Motorcycle Club, returned from a long ride. Their leather vests bore a large silver emblem, a winged skull wrapped in chains. To most people, they looked dangerous. But Martha, through her tears, saw something else: strength, loyalty, and unity. The club's leader, Jake Bear Lawson, spotted her first. He was a towering man with broad shoulders, a thick beard, and kind blue eyes. As he parked his Harley, he noticed the frail woman trying to lift a cardboard box filled with old photographs and books. She stumbled, and the box spilled open, scattering memories across the dirty sidewalk. Without a word, Bear knelt and began picking up the photos. One showed a young Martha in a wedding dress, smiling beside a man in uniform. Another showed her holding a group of children in a classroom. He handled each one gently, as though they were made of glass. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you shouldn't be out here. Where's your family?" She looked up at him, her eyes wet. "I don't have anyone left. And I don't have a home anymore. Some people took it." The other bikers gathered around. Tex, Diesel, and Rosa, the only woman in the group. Their laughter faded as they heard her words. "They took your home?" Rosa asked, furious. Martha nodded slowly. "I called the police. They said there's nothing they can do." Bear's jaw tightened. He stood up, towering over everyone, his voice low but filled with fire. "No one does that to an old lady. Not on our watch." That night, as the Iron Saints sat around their clubhouse table, Bear made a vow. "Tomorrow, we're getting her home back.